Good evening, Houdat Nation, and happy Wednesday, Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing very well out there, but I especially hope all you fathers or soon-to-be fathers are doing especially terrific. Happy Father's Day to all those who applied. This weary, beat up old man of a dad is doing pretty well. And I am Bob Rose. I am one of your hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast. Joining me is a younger, but I think equally weary co host, Brendan Boylan. Brendan, I hope you're doing well tonight.
I'm doing fine. As you mentioned, happy Father's Day early to all the fathers out there. And a special happy Father's Day to my brother-in-law who welcomed his third kid into the world this week. So welcome to the world to my niece. But we have a lot of exciting news, as you guys probably know or can read at the bottom of the screen, for the Saints. Mandatory camp began today, so we're starting to get the ball moving into a direction of actual football things to talk about, opposed to speculation, which is always fun. However, without getting too far ahead of myself, we also know that it means as soon as this mandatory camp stuff is over, we're going to have a period of just bleh. It's what, that like month and a half period of like, what do we do?
You know what? I have some ideas, and as you like to call it, Brendan, it's silly season. But we're gonna have some fun, folks. We're gonna get in touch with some of our friends, some of our former Saints players, and bring them back on the air, maybe even a couple at a time. Got a few ideas for them too, I think we're going to have fun over the next month and a half. I hope we're going to have fun because if there's legitimate Saints news that we have to talk about, more often than not, it is bad news this time of year. So I would much rather have fun and goof around with some of our friends, with some of you guys. Open the floor up to maybe some of the craziest questions or ideas that you have. For show topics, or want to pick Brendan or my brain about something, this is the greatest time of year to do that.
Absolutely. Jerry, hey, welcome in. Mark, 108 in Vegas today, Mark. Jeez Louise.
It's a dry heat, though. I love people that say that. I'm like, dude, 108 degrees is still... Would you rather be... laying on 108-degree concrete, which is dry, or have 108-degree boiling water poured on you? To me, they both sound equally painful. So I don't want to hear no dry heat crap.
No, I remember being in Phoenix last year. It is a dry heat.
It is,
but oh my Lord, it was hot in the desert. I see John Butler in here. So it's good to see a lot of our familiar faces. Let's jump into it with the biggest news of the week, and that is that we finally have an answer when it comes to Cameron Jordan. Cam Jordan returning to the Saints on a 1-year deal. I haven't seen contract details. I don't know if you have. So contract details have not been released yet, which is not abnormal.
No, we're hearing it's a 1-year deal that is going to be pretty incentive based. But like you said, the specifics have not yet been released. But I look at it this way, Cam came into the building 2 days ago, as was well publicized, and I'd said at the time, I said, I was actually on the Jordy Hultberg show with my for my regular Tuesday morning appearance, and that was Jordy's first question. Why do you think he's here? Do you think he's here to sign a contract? And I replied, yeah, I do, but I don't think he came to the facilities to talk financial details. I believe that he came specifically to meet with Brandon Staley. I mean, certainly Kellen Moore, Mickey Loomis, all the head honchos, but Brandon Staley is the defensive coordinator. Cam wanted to pick his brain and ask him probably point blank, knowing Cam, if I sign on this line, what role do you have for me? Because, and Cam especially, you're only going to sign an incentive laden contract if you have the opportunities to meet those incentives. And obviously, if I'm right, Cam must have liked what he heard, because he was only in the facility for a couple of hours before news started leaking that Cam Jordan is going to sign his contract. And we'll talk about what we believe Cam's role is going to be in a minute. But yeah, I believe that. That the finances had been on the table, the specific finances had been on the table, most likely for at least a few weeks. And Cam, I think Cam was on vacation even for a period, but Cam wanted to meet face to face with Brandon Staley and say, hey, if I come to New Orleans, what's my role going to be? Because we don't know exactly how much interest Cam Jordan got through the rest of the NFL, but I would find it hard to believe that the Saints were the only team that were interested. But as we all know, Cam is New Orleans. New Orleans is Cam. So Jordan wasn't going to go anywhere unless he felt his hand was forced. Thankfully, he didn't feel that way. And as you and I had been saying for really months, we believed that Cam Jordan was going to be back with the Saints for at least one more year. And now, thankfully, that turned out to be just the case.
Yeah. What you said, I think, is 100% true. We've heard for a while now that there was a contract offer on the table for Cam. Part of it, I think, truthfully, was, as we've brought up before, Cam being a businessman, wants to hear out all of his options, wants to mull over what he could do with the rest of his career. But also, being Cam's age, do you really want to be the topic of conversation at voluntary OTAs? Right? I think part of it too was let's just wait until things become mandatory. I'll make sure I'm in the building. We'll get a deal done. I'll show up, all that fun stuff. Right? I do think there was a level of trolling the last couple weeks. I think Cam is known for a while what the plan was. But the other day was more, hey, you might be 90% there. Let's meet, talk it out, hash out that last 10% and make sure that I'm happy, that you're happy, that I'm happy, that you're happy, that I'm happy. And just make it as simple as possible. When it goes to Cam's role, I could see it be one of two things. One is the more fun, I think, for Cam and for everyone involved. Hey, we're going to make your contract really incentive-based. You're going to have your opportunity to meet those incentives, but we brought in a young guy in Tyree Wilson. Carl Granderson, we still owe a lot of money to.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen and seen some moments from some other guys. You got to compete and show us that you can still be an every down guy. I think that was a big chunk of the conversation. And that Cam was like, all right, well, I'll show you guys what I still got. We'll do a 1-year deal, and we'll meet next summer to have this same conversation again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a prove it deal. When I say prove it deal, I think a lot more of it's you're taking a swing on somebody and seeing what happens. Hey, prove to me you're worth a bigger deal, like a bigger contract, right? I think of Chase Young a couple years ago. But I think this is more of a prove to the league that you can still play Cam type of deal. Because what happens if Cam has another year where he's ultra productive? Well, you go into next offseason, we get to do this whole circus again.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, what if it is very evident that Cam has lost a step or two, and that Cam is more going to be more utilized as a third down rusher, almost like some of these guys who've bounced around towards the end of their careers, even Von Miller-esque, just being a guy where it's like, hey, we're just going to pay you and we expect 5 sacks a year and these are the opportunities you're going to get. That's what the 1-year contract is, in my opinion. It isn't because the Saints don't want to lock him up long term. It's not because Cam is, this is it for Cam. It's, let's see what I can still do, and we'll revisit it.
Well, and listen, Cam is also, he's going to turn 37 on July 10th. He has 15 years of NFL wear and tear on that body. Famously, he's only missed 2 games during those 15 years. And most of those seasons, he's played at least 70% of the snaps. So, Cam is also at the age, the NFL age, where he is literally taking it year to year to year. So I am sure, well, obviously Cam was just fine with the 1-year deal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it, because we all know how famously stubborn Cam Jordan can be, and I respect that. But from the Saints' perspective too, I think the Saints realize that they need him, and that they wanted him back. If they didn't, they would have grabbed an edge rusher, certainly in the first 2 days of the draft, maybe the first 2 rounds, or maybe pursued, and albeit aging but still effective edge rusher similar to Cam earlier in free agency, when the price tag for the position was surprisingly low, for a lot of the players that signed. I'm not talking the Trey Hendricksons, but I'm talking like the next tier down. Neither of those things happened. Then additionally, and we all, like, you, me, Alan Ulrich, when the Saints swung that trade during day 2, to get, I think it was during day 2, it might have been early day 3, but to get Tyree Wilson.
I think it was early day 3.
You might be right.
Days run together. I don't know.
Yeah, I should tell me about it, especially during that draft-a-thon. But we liked the deal at the time, because it was a no risk, high reward situation for the Saints. But having said that, Tyree Wilson has still not proven he could be an effective NFL edge rusher. Carl Granderson has never been able to prove that he can handle being a top tier, a consistent top tier starter. So those are your answers at the position without Cam Jordan. You bring Cam back, you at least get a guy who can still be effective, even if it's as a part-time player. We know what a leader Cam Jordan is, and I think the Saints recognize that too. We bring in Tyree Wilson. We've already seen Cam play a huge role in Chase Young revitalizing his own career. If Cam can do the same thing with Tyree Wilson, and we recognize that quickly, maybe we can get Tyree locked up to a long-term deal, as Cam plays out his career. And now all of a sudden you have 2 athletic 20-something-year-old edge rushers in Chase Young, Tyree Wilson, both of whom Cam Jordan mentored. You are set at that position for at least the next 3 seasons. I think that it's a win-win for the Saints, and it's a win-win for Cam. Cam gets, I'm sure it's pretty good money. And at least in theory, Cam gets to finish his career with the team that he started with. Extremely rare in this day and age, and he's not doing so as a token veteran. He's doing so as a legitimate contributor.
Yeah, and we talked about it so much over the last few months, and when it comes to Cam Jordan, one of the biggest reasons we wanted him back, outside of the fact he's a great player and he's done so much for the city, is it is like chasing a unicorn. They're trying to find Bigfoot when you try to find guys who've stayed with one team their entire career that has lasted this long. Sure, I think we could probably name off a few guys that had nice 10-year careers that stayed with one team. But guys that had 15+ year careers with one team, I mean, it's hard and it's few and far between to find those guys. And with all respect to long snappers, like long snappers excluded from that list, kickers excluded from that list.
Long snappers are people too, but they are disqualified from this particular conversation.
Right. Essentially, the special teams guys are kind of disqualified from this conversation. But, and I mean, there's even been guys that have spent a long time in one place that weren't the stars of the team, and that's not the case for Cam. Man, like Marcus Colston comes to mind, but how long was Colston's career? It wasn't 15 years.
No. Did he make it 10? I think he made it 10, maybe 11.
And then, so like that, and if that's the first example I can pull out of my head, and it's like right at that 10-year mark where I'm like, well, that's a different animal. I mean, I would be really curious if you guys. Oh, John Butler just threw in the chat. Long snappers are people too. Yeah, I mean, we'll make hats. We said punters and kickers are people too for a long time before. If one of you guys wants to look it up, I'm sure Pro Football Reference has a list of guys who spent at least 15 years in the league and only played for one team. I'm sure it's not a very long list.
And to be fair, let's qualify that by saying has to be within the last 2 decades to since 2000. Because free agency.
You could just go to. I was going to go there. You could just go to the start of free agency. So what is that? Almost a little over 30 years now since free agency became a thing. So if you go those 30 years, like there's not a lot of dudes that have spent 15 years with one team, and not gotten somewhere else, right? I mean. Drew spent a long time, but obviously drafted by the Chargers. Brady spent a long time in New England, but ended in Tampa. Manning spent a long time in Indy, but ended his career in Denver. So, I mean, those are just quarterbacks off the top of my head, but yeah, it's few and far between.
Brendan, we've had this conversation before, but I feel it appropriate to bring it up again. Is Cam Jordan on the Mount Rushmore of Saints greats? Let's disqualify coaches because if you do Mount Rushmore, you're talking 4 heads. For those of you that don't know, the temptation would certainly be great to put Sean Payton on there. So let's leave one spot open by disqualifying coaches from the con. Let's say Saints players only. Is Cam Jordan on your Mount Rushmore?
Well, it wouldn't be fun for me just to give you an answer. So let's walk through what Mount Rushmore looks like. So, can we just knock out the first 2? Like, I think our brains are in the same exact spot.
I think so.
Ricky and Drew, 1 and 2, or 2 and 1, however you want to do that. But those are the first 2 locks, like absolute locks. Those are going to be when Drew gets inducted this summer. It'll be the only 2 to go in as Saints.
No.
Did Morton go in as a Saint?
I think he did. Willie Rofe, I don't remember whether he did or not.
Chief. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you brought up Willie Rofe. I don't know if he makes the Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
For the sole reason of what you just said, I don't know. Like, as silly as that sounds, it's like he had great careers with multiple teams. So it's not a sure lock to get in there. Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm struggling at 3 right now to name 3 guys that I'd rather have over Cameron Jordan, I think Cam Jordan's on there, so we can throw Cam at 3.
Okay.
Just to close out Mount Rushmore. You and I have never talked about this. This is going a little off track, but we are on Mount Rushmore. We're trying to determine this last spot. So Archie. I don't think you and I have ever really had that conversation. And so this is kind of where I stand with Archie Manning. Like, I have an Archie Manning jersey. I still wear it. I think there's a lot of respect and history. However, I don't even think he's the second greatest quarterback in franchise history.
Nope.
Love him or hate him, and I definitely had moments of both as a younger Saints fan. Aaron Brooks is the second greatest quarterback in the history of the team. It was short-lived, but he is. Is that all Archie's fault? No. I've watched the old films. Archie had no help. He was running for his life. Those were awful football teams. But, and I think you and I were thinking the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen great quarterbacks or great athletes make a really bad team a respectable team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Archie did that. And that's no disrespect to him. But I would not have him on a Mount Rushmore of Saints.
Nope. And did you watch Under the Dome last night?
No.
Okay. Hey, this was sorry, Alan. This was actually an extended good-humored debate between Alan and I, because we did our all-time Saints offense, listed 3 players at each position. I don't even have Archie Manning in my top 3 of Saints quarterbacks of all time. Now, I professed love for Jim. I professed love for Jim Everett as a person and as a quarterback, but I don't have Jim there either. Bobby Hebert is my third.
That's where I thought you were going to go. So,
and yeah, I think Archie was more talented, but Bobby did more as a New Orleans Saints quarterback, because the Archie Manning defenders that like to say, and I don't have Archie Manning on my Mount Rushmore either. I respect that he was the first true face of the franchise, and that he brought a little bit of notoriety to New Orleans because of his name and his draft status. But the Archie Manning defenders that like to throw out, he just played on such bad football teams. I counter with 2 arguments. One, exactly what you just said. The truly great quarterbacks through NFL history have been able to elevate their teams, from poor to competitive, from competitive to good, from good to great, and sometimes from great to elite. And Archie Manning was not able to do that. You can make an argument, from poor to competitive. But argument number 2 is, those Saints defenses were like epically bad. But this is a quarterback, Archie Manning, that had Wes Chandler at wide receiver, Henry Childs at tight end, Chuck Muncie and Tony Galbraith at running back. And I know he was running for his life a lot. That was because of poor tackle play. But the Saints actually did have a solid interior offensive line. So in my opinion, they had the makings of a potentially very good offense. And 1978, 1979 were the only really good Saints offenses. The rest of the time, nothing. And that's why Archie Manning is not in my top 3 of Saints quarterbacks. That's why Archie Manning is nowhere close to my Mount Rushmore. And I'm like you. I talk myself into, now like you, Brendan, I have a personal like for Cam Jordan, the individual too. But when you look at what these players did as New Orleans Saints, obviously Drew Brees is a no-brainer. Ricky Jackson is a no-brainer. We have 2 spots left if we're doing a player around Mount Rushmore. Can anyone really name 2 players that did more than Cam Jordan did for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, you can make an argument for Willie Roaf. Willie Roaf's in the Hall of Fame, but he played half of his career in New Orleans. I'm going to put Cam Jordan as my third spot too, and I'm actually going to put Sam Mills slightly over. I love Willie Roaf. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to put Sam Mills on my fourth spot for my Saints player Mount Rushmore, because I think Sam played a little bit longer than Roaf did, and while both were great, both Hall of Famers, I thought Sam did a little bit more for the New Orleans Saints than what for the New Orleans Saints defense than what Willie Roaf did for the New Orleans Saints offense. And listen, I know that's a tough call to make. I'm certainly open to debate. And if someone said, no, we're going to leave Sam Mills off, put Willie Roaf on, I'm only going to give a slight argument. Yes, I feel like we're splitting hairs. But yeah, my Saints Mount Rushmore of players is Drew Brees, Ricky Jackson, Cam Jordan, Sam Mills.
Sam Mills' love is not something I expected today, which is good because, and I think I've shared this before, the first year I played football, I was chunky, and I wore 51 because of watching old NFL films tape of Sam Mills. I loved watching Sam Mills tape. John Butler agrees. Yeah, let's go. Sam Mills love. So I don't want to be that guy. I want to do the rank radio and come up with a different answer. I think just like we disqualified special teams in our last conversation, I think I got to do the same thing. Yeah, I mean, Morton is like he is the Mount Rushmore of kickers, but he also kicked for 22 years. He kicked for multiple teams. I watched him kick in his mid 40s in Atlanta. So, I mean, long time. Like I said, Hall of Fame kickers are hard to come by as well, but I'm going to disqualify that. I've seen people talk about this topic online. Some people like to throw Deuce McAllister's name into the hat. Unfortunately, because of injuries, Deuce didn't do it long enough. Deuce also missed that very critical time frame where the Saints go and win a championship. And I think if Deuce is on that team, maybe we look at and has a role on that team, maybe we look at it differently. I'll throw Reggie's name out there strictly because of what the name Reggie Bush did for New Orleans. Very similar to what you talked about with Archie, that name recognition, draft status, but very similar. There were years where the statistics were really bad. Reggie was hurt. Obviously, it was a weird breakup, and it was not a very long relationship. But I have a soft spot always for Reggie Bush. I think the Saints got incredibly lucky, and they don't win a Super Bowl without Reggie Bush.
No.
So I think they got incredibly lucky that Houston passed. But he's not on my Mount Rushmore.
Listen, I think maybe Alvin Kamara gets some consideration here. Demario Davis, Jonathan Vilma.
Let's go to Alvin because it's another current guy. So let's talk about that. I did not expect this podcast to go into. Let's break all this down, but this is fun. And I like it.
It is, yeah.
I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this.
Yeah, we want to hear you guys' comments and questions on the matter too. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely chime in and say that Brendan's stupid, please. But yeah, Alvin's not on mine. And frankly, I don't know how close he is to sniffing it.
Fair.
And I think that's incredibly fair to say. But he peaked too damn early. Right? How many years, and obviously we were writing about this for years, how many years have we written or spoke about if we can just get back to Alvin in this year, if we can just get back to the Alvin Kamara of this year, it's been so inconsistent. It has been so much. I don't know if he cares or not half the time. That's been something you and I have both been very critical of him.
About a year and a half, yeah.
In writing, I remember, was it 19? He was really injured, right? Or was it 20? He was really injured.
Nah, 20 had a really good year. 19 he was injured.
He was injured. So I remember writing an article in 19 before the injury news came out, just being like, I don't think he's interested. I don't think he cares. And then the injury news came out, and I gave him a little bit of a pass. You know what? I felt bad. Okay. He was fighting through injury. Has a really good year in 2020. That was the 6 touchdowns in a game year. Okay. But really, after that, it's just been like, where's Alvin Kamara? Or like, is this the ghost of Alvin Kamara? We've seen spurts. We've seen moments. But it hasn't been consistent. I think that if we're talking about running backs and how close they'd be to Mount Rushmore of the Saints and consistency, I'm putting Mark Ingram before I am Alvin Kamara.
I would too, actually.
I do think there is a little bit of watching him kind of turn a corner and watching him have a fan base that turned on him very quickly, turned back to being like, oh man, Mark Ingram's that dude. I think that's part of it, but also just the consistency of it throughout, and the fact that he went from a guy that, you know, when the Saints had like 3 or 4 running backs, so maybe Mark Ingram's the odd man out, to, you know, multi-time Pro Bowler, got a huge, you know, maybe not huge, but got a really sizable contract to leave and go to Baltimore, had success in Baltimore. After that, I mean, for me, I would put Mark over Alvin just for consistency. When we get to the receivers, like, you could throw Colston out there. Colston's the greatest receiver to never get to a Pro Bowl, so that would be a knock on why he wouldn't be on Mount Rushmore when he didn't get to a Pro Bowl.
Mike Thomas, I mean, the sheer numbers, yeah.
But not long enough, injuries. How badly I want to put Jimmy Graham on that list, but I can't.
Yeah.
If we had like 2 more years of Jimmy Graham, I think he has a very strong case. And then defensively, yeah, I think Vilma could very easily be on there. DeMario could very easily be on there.
I'm a Pat Swilling guy, but you know, you get, just like Rofe, you get traded away in your prime.
Right.
I'm not going to say it leaves a sour spot with me, although I was angry at the time, angry with the team. It's just it's hard to qualify the spot for Graham, Rofe, and Swilling, because we didn't get to see the entire prime of their careers play out in New Orleans. Now, and Pat Swilling, I have gone on record, I don't even know how many times, saying it's criminal he's not in the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Graham, he even gets 2 more years in the mid-2000 teens in New Orleans. Jimmy Graham is not only a Hall of Famer, he's being strongly debated about as the best tight end of all time. But I mean, unfortunately, we can only play what ifs in those scenarios. And if you have to play what if, that kind of qualifies you from the greatest 4 of all time conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the other thing that really stinks about a lot of this is a lot of those guys that we're talking about the guys in the 80s, or even Jimmy Graham, who fell in a weird spot of the Saints being competitive and then not competitive, is that there are a lot of these teams that were not successful. And it's kind of hard to be like, all right, you're on the Mount Rushmore, but you guys never won a playoff game. I think it says more about the franchise than the players, but that's tough too when trying to figure out like what's that last spot, because everybody wants to live in the glory day. Everybody wants somebody to get from 2009 to be on that. But I don't think I can justify if you want to go offensive line, like, do you throw Jari Evans in that mix? I think you can. He'll get in the Hall at some point. But I kind of like your list with Sam Mills or Willie Roaf, like 1A, 1B. You could take either. And I also think it does mean a lot to have the Hall of Fame kind of tied into all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Mills was a guy. It took way too long for Sam to get in. Not Saints related, but you mentioned before we got on the air, you mentioned the Niners because of something that was on NFL Network. Why did it take Roger Craig this long to get in the Hall of Fame? I've said that for a long time. Like, how the hell is Roger Craig not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Because he played too early. Like, is that it? Like, he didn't put up the numbers of the Barry Sanders and the Walter Paytons that played in similar eras. Like, he was doing the scat back stuff before scat backs were a thing.
I mean, right, but Craig, Craig's numbers for that era were very comparable. Yeah, if you take Walter Payton out, and Barry Sanders out, the teams that were absolutely relying on them for to do anything. Craig's numbers were still comparable with all the rest of the backs in the league, and as you said, he was the first. People talk about Marshall Faulk, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Roger Craig was all those guys before them. Mm-hmm. And I always bitterly throw out the Saints bias, the bias against the Saints when it came to Mills taking so long to get in. Even Ricky Jackson went a few years. He wasn't a first ballot. Swilling not being there at all. Jari not being there yet. Craig was on 3 Super Bowl winning teams, the team of the decade. And it took this long for him to get in. So that one I can't figure. I've never been able to figure out.
First 1,000 season.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, 3-time Super Bowl champion. If you want to make the argument that numbers are skewed, but you kind of made that argument already with the Peyton and Walter Paytons and the Barry Sanders of the world. But also, like, you're talking about Roger Craig's doing this and putting up those numbers on teams that had Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. John Taylor, very good receiver as well. I mean, it's not like he was the offense. Like, he was probably option 3 in that offense and was still putting up those numbers. So shout out Roger Craig. That very excited to see him get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and this coming from a couple of 49er haters too. So
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what my dad, obviously, a more seasoned Saints fan, as we say, but him and I are going to be at the induction, so we'll kind of see what my dad's reaction is to Roger getting in. I think as a football fan, he'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who did that much for the game is finally getting the recognition that they deserve. So,
speaking of Hall of Fame, to come full circle and bring it back to the Cam conversation. Yeah,
right.
Has Cam, in your opinion, done enough to have a bust in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Before I answer that, I'm pulling up Pro Football Reference for 2 reasons. Make sure I have my numbers right, but 2, as some of you know, Pro Football Reference actually gives a percentage based off of statistics and other people in the Hall of Fame on a player's odds to get in the Hall of Fame. So I do want to see what Pro Football Reference's percentage odds are. I would have had this prepped, but this wasn't on the cue card, so I apologize. But I do like this conversation because it's I think it's very warranted. All right, let's see.
And Cam, if you're watching, reach out to Brendan or myself. We would love to have you on the show anytime you want, for sure. But I'm not going to say you got some time off before training camp, but you got a little bit of a quiet period. So Brendan and I are open for you, my friend. I would love to have an opportunity to interview you again. This time maybe for an elongated segment and get your thoughts on some of these subjects.
So Cameron Jordan's Hall of Fame monitor is at 85.58, which is 16th amongst defensive ends. The average Hall of Fame defensive ends rating is 102.38. So he's 15 points from the average Hall of Fame defensive end. I'm trying to get some stuff to load so I can kind of see how that's calculated. But what, 132 sacks? Yeah, 132 sacks. 8-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. He was named to the All-Decade team as well, I believe.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I believe you're right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think so. So, just to put it in comparison, I'm gonna read some names and then give what their Hall of Fame score was. Is that cool? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So the Hall of Fame score of the greatest defensive end of all time, Reggie White, 239.73. I don't know how these calculations work. It's based off of championships, sacks, like team success and personal success. There's a lot of different things that go in there. So other players that are either in the Hall of Fame or will be in Hall of Fame consideration. J.J. Watt is at 152.68. Julius Peppers, 119.75. All those guys are above the average of 102. This is where, if you guys are sitting there at home going, ooh, I don't like those numbers. This is where I come in, I give you guys some example players and their scores, and you're going to start feeling a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to work my way down. Jason Taylor, 99.08. Richard Seymour, 94.35. Howie Long, 91.45. Dan Hampton, 86.60. Dwight Freeney, 85.55. Cameron Jordan, 85.58. Calais Campbell is at 83 even.
And listen, Cam Jordan is a better player than Julius Peppers, Richard Seymour, two others. Yeah, Calais Campbell. You named another one in there.
Howie Long.
No, different eras, but Howie Long was one of the most dominant defenders of his era. I would put Jason Taylor. Cam Jordan is a much better player than Jason Taylor too. Yeah, no disrespect to any of those guys, but yeah, we're talking greats of the greats. And to me, you mentioned Pro Football Reference, a site which I love, by the way, and team success. I think that the fact that Cam Jordan does not have a Super Bowl ring. Fuck you, Roger Goodell. Fuck you too, Kyle Mosley, just for the hell of it. But the fact that Cam Jordan does not have a Super Bowl ring, barring a surprise in 2026, that hurts him unfairly, but it does. And
you
at that point,
the same wavelength because he just threw that in the chat.
What? Fuck Kyle Mosley. Thanks, John Butler.
Not quite, but the 2018 ring would have helped Cam's number here a lot.
You know what? I think a ring in 2018, even a ring in 2011, when Cam didn't make a big impact as a rookie, but it's still on his resume. I think that some of the morons that vote blindly purely on this guy won 3 rings. Yeah, okay, but he was a little used backup on 2 of those teams, but whatever. Yeah, I think even a ring in 2011, a Super Bowl ring on the resume clinches Cam Jordan's spot in the Hall of Fame. My opinion, Cam has already done more than enough to be there, because some of the guys that you just named, some of the guys that you didn't name that are in the Hall of Fame, Cam Jordan is a better player than, if you use your eyes, and even if you just go by pure numbers, Cam Jordan betters them. Um, and I do believe that he does get in. I think it'll be a Ricky Jackson type of situation where he'll have to wait a few years. He won't be a first ballot. Now, I think the 100% clincher from the outside, the clincher that would supersede Saints bias would be if Cam gets 8 sacks. I think 140 is the magic number here. If Cam gets 8 sacks and he's at 140, he surpasses a lot more guys between him. I think Strahan is in that range too of sacks.
Strahan's got 141.
All right, so I'm close. But I think I think that would be a magic number, for him to get to. If he doesn't get a ring before he retires. I certainly believe his resume is already more than Hall of Fame worthy. But at this point now you're looking at, the people that have kept the Pat Swillings out for so long, out period, and the Jari Evans and Marcus Colstons, et cetera, out for so long. What are they going to look at as negative reasons to keep Cam Jordan out? And I think that's what we're down to now. And it's a short list, but Cam might still have a little bit more to accomplish on the field to shut up that negative Saints bias that seems to be out there.
I'll throw out 2 Hall of Famers that Cam is much higher on this list in terms of score. Jared Allen, 68.15. compared to Cam Jordan's 85.5. And then Charles Haley is at 63.05.
Yeah, and Charles Haley, I think Cam Jordan is a better overall player than what Charles Haley was. But I don't think that there's any human being that's watched pro football on the face of the earth that's going to say, Charles Haley doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying that about any of these other guys either. I am saying if you're going to put a Charles Haley in the Hall of Fame, you have to put a Cam Jordan in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Last note, Cam Jordan is almost tied with Dan Hampton in terms of the numbers, but Hampton and Jordan are the 2 highest rated players to have no more than 1 AP first team selection or all pro selection. Everybody above Cameron Jordan has multiple first team selections. So I know that definitely has a factor in the number. And
it is. It shouldn't, but it is.
But it does. Which, we could kind of close out some of the conversation tonight on that is you kind of mentioned Super Bowl, a Super Bowl ring, regardless of what point in his career would help. At what point did we get to a stage when we rank players where the following things are important? Because I see this across sports. The following 3 things are more important than just about anything. Super Bowl rings, not so much in football or other sports. MVPs or personal accolades, whether it be Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. And then finally, not Pro Bowls, not all-star games anymore, but all pro or all NBA or all whatever. When is it those 3 things became more important than anything else? And why? And how do you take a lot of that modern thinking when you make lists or give analysis like we have tonight?
And by the way, Pat Swilling was the 1991 Defensive Player of the Year. Still holds the franchise record for sacks, and still not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He'll
be listed at linebacker, not at defensive.
Probably, yeah. But going back to what your question was, in a way, I understand it. You do have to have a way, just for shows like this, articles like we write, you do have to have a way to separate the best from the best. other than just pure opinion, or to back up whatever your opinion might be. But to me, people put too much blind faith in that. For example, I'll still stay focused on the championships. Well, Ricky Jackson was a Super Bowl champion. Yeah, he was. With the 1994 49ers. Now, Ricky wasn't a bench player or a little used backup. Yeah, he still had double-digit sacks. But Ricky Jackson made his career, is a Hall of Famer because of what he did with the New Orleans Saints. Yet I have actually read and heard people say, well, winning that Super Bowl with the 49ers clinched his Hall of Fame berth. That's such ridiculous thinking. But that comes from the people who barely watch and or barely understand the sport, in this case football. Well, Ricky Jackson was is a Hall of Famer because he's a Super Bowl champion and he has all those numbers. Ideally, you need to look at on the field. I mean, the definition of the Hall of Fame in any sport is someone who made a lasting impression on your sport. So, in Ricky's case, would the 49ers have won that Super Bowl in 1994 without him? They had a pretty loaded team, so I think the chances are pretty strong. Would the Denver Broncos have won 2 Super Bowls in the late 1990s if John Elway wasn't their quarterback? Probably not. Would the Saints have won in 2009 if Drew Brees wasn't their quarterback? Probably not. And that's where the championship check mark on the resume actually matters. So I mean, but again, in my opinion, too many people have said, well, this guy won a championship or a couple championships. By all means, he's in the Hall of Fame. No, you're not supposed to just look at it on paper. You're supposed to actually see, did this player play a role in the championship? Because if he didn't, then I'm not saying that he should be disqualified from the Hall of Fame, but that particular argument, that particular category should be crossed off. We can't take that into consideration because it didn't really play a major role. Like I said, ideally, at least in theory, anybody that's in the Hall of Fame had some people have said, have changed your sport. No, that's the elite of the elite. Had a lasting, like you can't, I forget
can't
what.
Talk about the sport without bringing up their name.
Thank you.
You can't not talk about the history of the sport without including them. Yeah,
or at least the history of that particular franchise. And I don't think you can talk about the history of the New Orleans Saints without Cam Jordan's name popping up. Therefore, Cam Jordan qualifies.
Yeah. Just to throw this out there because I will forget it. You said Pat Swilling. Pat Swilling scores 73.55. He's wedged in between Dave Robinson and Chuck Howley, who are both in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Better numbers than Andre Tippett, who played in his era and is in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I could go on. I could go on and on and on.
Numbers. There's a ton of dudes on this list, though, that don't even sniff the 107 sacks. 7.5, 107.5. I apologize. Half sack counts. Okay, so that argument, and the reason I ask this is I have definitely noticed in hoops culture more over the years. Man, Jerry, you're still here. You've hung out the whole show, man. We appreciate you.
I hope we didn't bore anybody. I hope you all are still here.
Yeah, no, but it's just we've been left, right, up, down, all over for silly season. But no, in hoops culture, more and more championships mean more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super infuriating. Hey, Calvin, thanks for popping in, even though it's late. We're not judging you, Calvin. John is, but I'm not. So no, the championships mean more than anything, and it's really infuriating because of the point you just brought up, right? So this is kind of a drastic example, but it's recent, so it's kind of on my mind. Is last year there was a player in the NBA. He didn't play a single game. He was a rookie. He missed his entire rookie season, and he became the first player in NBA history to win a championship without recording a minute.
Wow.
Right? Won a championship before recording an NBA minute. Let's say he goes and has a stellar career. Hope he does. Are we going to look back and be like, yeah, but that championship is rookie year because he didn't play? Like, look,
Exactly.
A championship's a championship. At the end of for the athlete themselves, regardless of if you're the star player or you play 0 minutes and get a ton of no snaps or DNPs or you're a healthy scratch or whatever, a championship's a championship, and no one can take that away from you. And we're not saying you should. My favorite basketball player of all time logged less than 1 minute in the championship that he won. No one can take that away. Right? My favorite player is an NBA champion. Damn it. But I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, like let's use that as a qualification towards why this guy should be higher on people's lists for things. Because, oh, he won a championship playing less than a minute. Or that guy I was just talking about, Nikola Topic, he played 0 minutes the entire year and won a championship. Like, I hope at the end of his career, nobody's sitting there and being like, yeah, but he's got a championship. He's got a championship. Look, he's got a championship. And that's what we're talking about. We're not taking championships away from anybody because we know as Saints fans or fans of other sports franchises or even the New York City who just experienced their first championship in 50-something years for basketball, it is really freaking hard to win a championship.
Yeah, it is. You never
know if you're going to see another one.
In any sport at any level.
Or ever, right? You have no idea. We're not taking that away from people, but we got to stop using it as a qualifier. In that circumstance, like, and everybody points towards Dan Marino for football, right? Well, Dan got there, but he never went back. He never won one. Did anybody use that against Dan Marino being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? No, nobody sat there and was like, you know what? I don't think we should let Dan in the Hall of Fame because he didn't get a Super Bowl ring. So then why do we do it on the other side where it's like, oh yeah, well, he's got 3 Super Bowls. And 2 of those were what I call ring chasing. He was chasing rings at the end of his career. He got 2 with New England, or whatever, or Tampa, because half of the freaking Patriots went to Tampa Bay at the end. So they ring chased. They got another one. So do we really need to count that? If we're not disqualifying the Dan Marinos of the world because they didn't get one, can we use that same logic to use it as qualification on why someone should be in over someone? And that's what's really frustrating. I understand MVPs or personal achievement awards.
Yeah.
Right? The MVPs, player of the years, those should absolutely be valuable. I like the fact that we are moving away from it used to be, oh, well, this guy was a 13-time Pro Bowler. Well, now the Pro Bowl is a joke.
Yeah.
The All-Star games are a joke. So I'm glad we're moving off of that as a qualifier and moving more towards, well, were they, first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro? Were they first team NBA, second team NBA? Were they this? I agree with those aspects of it. That is how you can look at the history of a season. We just talked about it. We got to be able to talk about the history of the game and talk about these guys. I think the All-Pro awards are so important because it tells you the history of that season. Yeah. Right? You can look back at that season just at the All-Pro lists and the statistics and be able to, if I just handed you, hey, this was the first team All-Pro, don't give you year, don't give you context, you didn't watch football at all that year. You're just waking up from a coma and you don't remember anything. I can give you that list and you can tell me a lot of what happened that season just based off that list and statistics. That's super important. But and this might sound very salty as a guy who roots for a lot of teams that don't win championships. Right? Do you want to go through the list, boys? I am a Saints fan. I'm a Charlotte Hornets fan. So I've got 1 in New Orleans, thank God. None in Charlotte. I'm a Mets fan, so I've never seen a championship there either.
Yes, I'm old. Thank you for reminding me.
Well, it's okay. Sorry, Bob. 86.
Yeah, 86.
The year my dad graduated high school. I was fortunate with the Devils, but like the big 3 or 4, right? Like I've seen one championship. So maybe you guys are like, oh, you're just salty because your teams don't win. It's like, no, like I hate the argument. I hate the argument. I hate the argument. I hate the argument. Well, this guy's got this many rings. If that was the case, then going back to basketball, Robert Ory's one of the greatest players of all time then because he's got 7.
Right.
Bill Russell actually is one of the greatest players of all time. He's got 11. So then he's the greatest basketball player to ever walk the face of the planet, right? Well, we all know the answer to that is no. Michael Jeffrey Jordan. That's a different conversation for a different day. But,
it is. Big Shot Bob was a pretty damn good player, though.
He was. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. But we can't but is Big Shot Bob better than Michael Jordan because he's got
right?
Like, and that's where this argument has gotten over the years, and it's awful. Right? Like we've already started hearing that conversation with Patrick Mahomes. Right? Well, if Mahomes catches Brady, and it's like, wait a minute. Like, first off, it's really impressive that Pat's got the rings that he has at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Love or hate him, he's a very entertaining player. He's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks to walk the face of the earth, even if he never plays another snap.
Yeah.
Okay, we can disagree there.
Another show for another day.
But the fact that we're already having that, if he can catch Brady. But we're not talking about Brady's statistics. We're talking about Brady's rings. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, what if Drew was still the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns and all that? Are we talking about, if he catches Drew? No, that's still not the argument. It is if he can catch the rings. If he can catch, that's the most important. If he can catch the rings. And we're defining whole careers off of Super Bowls.
Yeah, and even Breeze is often disqualified in several people's rankings of the greatest quarterbacks, the top 3 or top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time, because he's only got one. Dude, watch football. Watch the game, and you will see that there are not 5 quarterbacks that have played in NFL history better than Drew Brees. Maybe 3, not 5.
You're absolutely right.
And that's what I say. And I've said this about Cam Jordan before. To wrap up our Cam talk. Cam Jordan's most impressive feat to me was the fact that he was a defensive star on a few of the worst defenses of all time. 2012, 2014, 15, and even 16. And that, by the way, is one reason why Drew Brees only has one ring. That and Roger Goodell, because those defenses were just so bad. Well, folks, the games that the Saints won back in those days were often shootouts. But if you recall, the New Orleans Saints defense, at the end of a few of those shootouts, it's not like Drew Brees had the ball last in every single one of those shootout victories and won in the final seconds. He might have put some points on the board, the necessary points on the board in the final moments. And then, you're hoping, you're praying, oh my God, can this awful defense just make a stand one time today? And when they did, it was number 94 more often than not making that play. And that is what has always stood out to me, is that when you can be a great player among trash, then you are a great player. And that's the most impressive Cam Jordan to me, was that era. I've loved watching Cam every year of his career, every play of his career. I will be sad when it ends. But the most impressive version of Cam Jordan to me were those mid-2000 teens.
Yeah. Well, God, think about it this way. Think about 2013, a surprise year for the Saints. Why? Why was it a surprise year? The defense was good.
Mm-hmm.
Why was the defense good? Cam Jordan had double-digit sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Junior Gillette had double-digit sacks. Right? like Cam Jordan, not single-handedly, but Cam Jordan had a massive role in the successful Saints teams because it was always, man, just give Drew a defense. And then look what happened 17 and 18 and 19
Mm-hmm.
those years. And why that was a huge surprise in 17 because the Saints defense was really damn good. And Cam Jordan had a lot to do with that. I think that's a great way to close out our conversation on Cam Jordan. So, yes, he should be in the Hall. It might not be first ballot. Probably won't be first ballot, but he should be in the Hall of Fame, even if the career stopped today.
Yep. You know who is in our Hall of Fame forever and foremost here on is Get Checked or Check Out. We didn't forget about you guys. We hit the ground. We're sprinting tonight. We were Usain Bolt from the gate. Get Checked or Check Out. Their website is at the bottom of the screen. It's tcynow.org. This is an organization that was put in place over a dozen years ago to help guide people through a terrifying medical diagnosis. Whether it's individual or family, they will help guide you through the next step in the process when you don't know when to turn next, whether that's a research, a treatment, or a therapy option. Contact Get Checked or Check. I hope you don't have to, but if you do, these are the people to contact. And check out their website, see what they're all about, folks. Donate a little bit if you can. It's certainly to a worthy charity. The best way to help Get Checked or Check Out, though, is go on vacation. You can party in Paris for a purpose, and you can join the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation in Paris, France, for the New Orleans Saints game against the Pittsburgh Steelers on October 25th. If you are interested, contact Tracy Ransom at 225-400-3599, or you can email at GLT by Tracy, TRACEY, at gmail.com. Tracy Ransom is organizing all the travel packages for this game, for this event, that includes 5 days of hotel, round-trip airfare, and airport transfers. You have to make a deposit, but the final payment, it will not be due until August. This is a major fundraiser, a new fundraiser for the first game in NFL history to be played in Paris. You get to help out a wonderful charity, donate to a great cause, and spend a historical football game with a few former Saints legends, fellow members of the Houdat family, as we get to enjoy a Saints game, overseas fun and memories, all while benefiting an amazing charity and the people who run it. Now, Get Checked or Check Out every year does the yearly spring trip. It's always been a cruise. This past year, we went to the Bahamas. Still waiting on the details for the 2027 trip as far as destination and dates, but the Bayou Blitz, Brendan and myself, will keep you posted as soon as we know. Again, this is the biggest fundraiser that they have. They're adding this Paris trip on top of it. We're trying to organize, and we're getting closer to doing so. We're trying to organize a game day event or two with Get Checked Out and Saints legends on and off the field. Tyrone Hughes, Mike Lewis, Courtney Roby, Delvin Breaux, and others. We're not only hanging out with them for a brief period. It's an extended trip with these guys and their families, and such an amazing time. And again, you get to benefit a terrific charity while doing it.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Excited for whatever we plan for game day stuff. I also need an excuse. I haven't been back to New Orleans in a long time, so I need an excuse to go down there anyway. So,
with any luck, and I am starting to have conversations with these guys. With any luck, we're going to have one event in New Orleans and one event on the road. But right now, obviously, the focus is on getting the details of the Paris trip finalized, and then. Again, we will keep you posted, folks, for any game day activities with Get Checked or Check Out, because anything that we do, the proceeds is are obviously going directly to Shireen and this terrific charity.
All right, real quick, we've been closing out the show like this, so we'll close it out this way. And I guess we'll be doing this for a while, is until we just run out of names.
It might be a while.
Yeah, Saints players that didn't work out. And for the first little bit, we kind of kept it till like didn't work out because they sucked. But we'll broaden the spectrum. It didn't work out for whatever reason. Bob, give me an offensive and defensive player that you hate didn't work out.
We're going offense and defense.
Oh,
I thought we were.
You pick one. I'll pick.
Yeah.
And I'll pick the other side of the ball. So
all right. I mean, that's fair. I was going to say let's just do one, especially because we ran a little bit over tonight. How about wide receiver Cameron Meredith?
One critic.
I was really excited for this guy. A dominant physical receiver in Chicago. Had some injury problems his final year there, but he was healthy. And I got word, this was 2018. I got word 2-3 days before it happened that hey, the Saints are negotiating pretty strongly with Cam Meredith. I'm like, what? And I pre-wrote the article, everything like that. Was proud of myself that I got it out. Cam Meredith went on to have that only the last year of his NFL career was 2018 with the Saints. He appeared in 6 games, caught 9 passes for 114 yards and 1 touchdown. And most of that was during that shootout in Atlanta. The Drew Brees spin touchdown play is what made that game famous. But that was one of those entertaining down to the wire shootouts between the Saints and Falcons. Cam Meredith actually showed up. I think he had 100 yards receiving in that game, and only had 114 yards for the year. So that's my vote for this week's dud of the week, or dud of franchise history.
Dud of franchise history. Okay. So, like, naturally, because I said his name earlier for the first time in a long time, it's kind of cheating because it wasn't a true dud. It was just what happened.
And like you said, we did not meet expectations. So someone we were high about is a free agent signing, trade acquisition. We're not even going to get into number 1 draft picks because that extends our list, feels like to infinity.
So did not meet expectations because he was not on the field after putting together a good year. I'm going Junior Galette. I said his name earlier for the first time in a long time. But that 13 team, and it wasn't until you made that whole rant about those teams sucked and the Cameron Jordan. And I was like, yeah, because after 13, we had this kind of like false sense of like hope and momentum going into 14 and 15 because you had your edge rushers. And God, they were both good.
Yeah.
And then
you could still close your eyes and see 94 and 93 crashing the pocket at the same time.
Oh yeah. So and then the video and all that stuff happened. And yeah. I don't have to go into too much details there. Calvin,
because if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. Calvin, I see your comments. We are going to save that because I think that'll be. Do you want me to say the name?
Sure.
Okay, just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
You said Brandon Marshall.
You say that with a question mark. Why?
Because he put a question mark at the end.
Oh well, that. I mean that's a great one, Calvin. And you could you could include I know. And I loved Brandon Marshall with the Denver Broncos. Absolutely loved him. I mean, he was unstoppable before Josh McDouchebag did Josh McDouchebag things.
But Josh gave him Debo.
He did. Josh also, to be fair, Josh also drafted Demaryius Thomas. So, Marshall went on to a couple really, really great seasons with the Bears and the Jets too. Mm-hmm. Now, you knew Brandon Marshall was at the tail end of his career, but it was Sean Payton desperately searching for a complimentary wide receiver. I brought up Cam Meredith. We all know what happened with Des Bryant. Similar thing happened with Brandon Marshall. They signed him, and you're like, well, yeah, I'm excited because I knew the player that I watched, also being a fan of the Denver Broncos. And I'm like, I know he's not that player anymore, but I want to see what he's got left. And we never got to see it because he never got on the field. His body had been falling apart by that time.
Yeah, my mind, as soon as I read Brandon Marshall, my mind went Des Bryant. I was very excited.
Same year. It was the same year.
Was that the same year of my favorite story we ever reported on? The Antonio Brown story?
Yeah, I think it was.
That was my favorite because it was so bizarre.
Not if you know Antonio Brown.
I mean, we do, but it was one of those just like, of course, when we get the news, what am I thinking? I'm like, man, we're going to have Mike Thomas on one side. If we can get 70% of the Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, like, we're booming, you know? And all you got to do is not bring a camera crew. All you got to do is not bring a camera crew. It's the only thing Sean asked for. Don't bring your camera crew. What did he do? Brought his camera crew. So that's a what if for me.
Well, and with Antonio Brown, it was always a race to see what you got out of him before the psychotic break.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that psychotic break happened before it even got to the starting line.
Yeah.
And I wasn't excited about Antonio Brown because, again, I know what a psychopath he is and a cancer and a divisive presence. I'm like, I don't want that in my locker room. Yeah, if I'm Sean Payton, I don't want it anywhere near me. So I was actually thankful it didn't happen.
See, I was the opposite. I said I can take 8 weeks of it if it means we can get to a Super Bowl. And I mean, shoot, Tampa, he was okay in that locker room for a year, got a ring. He had that 2-game pit stop in New England where he was really good and then just got cut out of nowhere.
But yeah, he got cut because he went Antonio Brown.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough of looking into the past a little bit. Guys, thanks for tuning in, hanging out. We ran about 20 minutes long tonight, but it's silly season, so we're allowed to do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
It's a fun show.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, where can people follow you and your work?
Folks, easiest way to follow me is follow the Saints Wire. That's where all of my articles are generated, and I am among a group of great writers, great people. All of us work hard. So make sure you follow the Saints Wire. They are available on pretty much every platform. Or if you want to have some fun with me as a person too, you can follow me on my social media platforms, where I also post all of our show links and all of my article links. I'm Bob Rose on Facebook, at BobbyR2613, over on Twitter, X, the X Twitter, whichever you want to call it. It'll always be Twitter to me, but whatever. And I am, I'd like to think anyway, pretty responsive to DMs over there too, especially if you have any questions about how to get more information on Get Checked or Check Out or any of the events that they have upcoming. Please DM me on one of those platforms or shoot me a text. I'll be happy to provide every bit of information I have. This is an organization and a cause that Brendan and I believe very strongly in, and we are proud to have worked closely with them for the last year and a half now, and hopefully many years to come.
Absolutely. For me, you can follow me everywhere right there at BT Boylan. Bob and I will be back next week. Actually talk some mandatory mini camp, talk about some things that we've seen at camp, things we're hearing at camp, and it'll be an actual football show to counteract what has been a very silly season type of show. So until then, hope you guys find peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you next week for another edition of the Bayou Blitz. See you then.